Hi, George here, and today I'll be showing you how to use smart object layers inside of Photoshop Elements, why they're useful, and how to get out of them if you want to do that. Okay, first thing we need to do is just to explain how you end up in this position. Now, if you notice up here, up in our layers, this dog is on a smart object layer, and you can tell because of this little icon bottom right-hand corner. And what this means is that this image is protected from a lot of things that you might accidentally do here in Photoshop Elements. Let me just delete this one layer, hit the trash can there, get rid of that. And that's if you place an image here into your layer in Photoshop Elements. I'm going to do a couple things. Let's first open up that dog image file, and I'll open. And I have it right here. I'll just minimize that. So that one is now down in the photo bin. There we go. You can actually grab an image from the photo bin and just drag it into a different project like that. And notice that this comes in right here as a smart object layer. You can see right there, a little icon. Let's just delete that layer. There we go. Now, if I took this here, do a Control-A keyboard shortcut, which selects the whole thing, and then edit. Copy. Let's just get that out of the way. Back over here again, and then edit and paste. Notice this time it does not come in as a smart object layer. There's no smart object over here on the layer icon. So that way it doesn't give you a smart object. So depending upon how you bring your image into your project, it may or may not come in as a smart object. Basically, if it's being placed here, it'll be a smart object. We can see that by going over to the File menu, come down to Place, and there's that image right here. Choose Place, and whenever you see these lines come in like this, that lets you know that you're going to be having a smart object layer. Click the OK button there, that green check mark, and again, there is that smart object layer icon. Okay, so that's how you end up getting these things. Hit the green check mark, that's placed. Let's now go up here to the Filter menu, come down, and we'll just do an artistic, maybe a colored pencil at the very top. And you get this warning in here that you can't do this unless it is simplified. Now, what simplified means is it's being converted from a smart object layer into a regular pixel-based layer. And that is the advantage, actually, of working with smart object layers, is that you can't do anything that is going to actually change the pixel on the layer. Anything that comes in as a layer on top of this, and then you're blending it in like an adjustment layer or a photo layer up here, under layer, come down to adjustment layer. Anything in here is perfectly fine. So you can do levels adjustments, brightness, contrast, hue, saturation. You can do a gradient map, a photo filter, invert, threshold, or a posterize. All of these are okay because they're applied on top. Let's just do a gradient map. And I use previous layer right here, choose OK. And we'll just choose a colorful gradient map. There we go. Here's this kind of a orange tone gradient map. So this works because if you look up here to our layers, it's coming in as a new layer above the original layer. The original layer has not been touched. So that is okay. That's fine. You can do that. Let me just delete this thing in here. If I want to come in, though, and actually change the pixels here, let's say I went up to the Enhance menu. Anything in here is applied to the actual pixels on the actual layer. Now, I normally don't do these things for that exact reason. I want to keep my layers safe so that I can go back and change them in the future if I want to, if I make a mistake. So let's say we'll come in here, we'll do a color, hue, saturation. Again, there's a warning dialog box because I can't change the actual pixels in here on the image. So you can't do most of your filters if they change the actual pixels. You can't do things from the Enhance menu because this changes the actual pixels. You can, though, do anything from the adjustment layers in here. Those are fine because they come in as a new layer. Now, down below here, bottom right-hand corner, we have Effects. And here, these actually do work to a certain extent. Let's go ahead, we'll do our colored pencil over here. Click on this. There's that colored pencil sketch. Let's now see why this one worked. I'll come down to the layers down here, and notice that this comes in as two new layers. So that's why that one worked. Let's just undo. I'll do the Control-Z keyboard shortcut to undo that. So most of these effects over here will work because they do come in as new layers on top of your original layer. Go right in here into the filters. Let's do a Paint Jobs filter. The filters from the Filters panel will not work because those are going to be trying to change the actual layer. Go over here to Styles. These come in as layer styles, which means that these will work. If I come down here and let's do a Bevels, let's do this kind of a double bevel effect right in here. You can see that on the edges. Go back to our layers again. That works even though we don't see a new layer because it's coming in here as a layer style. It's a style being applied to that layer, and I can either have that included or not. It's up to me. So Because of that, they're not actually damaging the actual or original pixels. I'll use a Control Z to undo that step. Okay, so that's what the Smart Object layer does, is it protects your original image so you don't accidentally make a change. Now, I normally don't use these because they do limit you on what you can do with your image. Now, there are two ways to solve that problem. The first one, this is what I normally do. If I place an image, I'll go up here and I'll simply right-click on the name and come down to Simplify Layer right there. This is the same option you get if you try to apply a filter in here. Artistic, cutout, you get that same option to simplify the layer. Now, I don't do it that way. I always go over here, right-click, and Simplify Layer. It's now no longer a Smart Object layer. That means that it is available for change, but that also means I can destroy that layer if I do something wrong. So what I do, and this is my way of working around that problem of protecting my original layer, is to go over here, right-click on this, come down to Duplicate Layer, choose OK, and then hide that layer. This now is my safety layer. If I mess things up on my new layer, I can always come back to this layer as a safety. So I still have those protections built in because I have the safety layers. As long as you remember to make a duplicate layer and hide it as a safety layer, then you're okay. You can then do whatever you want on this layer without any issues. And that's my preferred approach. So I'll place something in. If I get a Smart Object layer, change that over here on the right-hand side, right-click and you do the Simplify layer over here and make a duplicate. Then you still have the same safety that you will get with that Smart Object layer. Now, you may ask, why do they even have this thing in here if it's not that useful? This is something that has kind of snuck in from Adobe's Photoshop program. They have smart objects over there, and they also have smart filters and things that are very nice, very useful for one particular reason. Over on Adobe Photoshop, you can have your layer, your smart layer, linked to your original image. So if I change something on the original image, it will then update my Photoshop file. So I have that link in there, and that can be very, very useful. If I want to use the same image on a lot of different projects, you don't have that linking here in Photoshop Elements. We get a little bit of Photoshop abilities here in Elements, but not necessarily all of those abilities. Now you can turn off that smart object if you place an image, and that's up here under Edit, come down to Preferences and in General. And this is in later versions of Photoshop Elements. I think this came in 2020 or 2021. I forgot exactly which one. But as later versions, you do have the ability to disable smart objects, and you'll then no longer see those inside the program. For most people, it really isn't a problem. Just keep in mind that you may have to simplify your layer and make a duplicate. Now, if you learned something from this video, why don't you buy me a cup of coffee for that? I'll appreciate that. Just click on the thanks button right down bottom right-hand corner of the video player and send me a couple of bucks. That'll really help out my channel. Also, if you really want to learn how to use Photoshop Elements, learn everything about it, the best way to do that is with my complete training course, and there's a link for that right down there in the description. Don't forget to check out my channel for hundreds more Photoshop Elements videos. Make sure you subscribe so you don't miss out on any videos in the future, and I'll see you next time.